Yo, what's up guys? So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was in charge of kunoichi and got massive harem, part 2. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, MZ Kitty Cat, link is in the description, and also subscribe to my channel, and like this video. Inside, all the girls were present except for Temari and Ino. Tenten could hardly believe the amount of groceries Kurenai and Naruto bought from the market. There were in fact 32 bags of groceries. Each bunchin carried 4 bags each. Wow. Kurenai-san. You and Naruto must have bought the whole store. Tenten remarked excitedly. Isn't this a bit too much, Kurenai? Shizun asked. Who cares? Anko answered. Anko was about to unpack the grocery bags when Kurenai stopped her. Wait until Naruto comes to Anko. Kurenai said to her friend, stopping Tenten from her tracks as well. Why is that, Kurenai-san? Asked Tenten. She was eager, as Anko, to unload all the groceries and see what they had bought. It was Naruto who went all through the trouble of shopping for us. I think at least 2 bags go to each resident of the inn, and the rest is just food and necessities for the inn. Kurenai answered. He did what? Anko replied back, flabbergasted that the blonde brought each of the residents presents. Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered in shock. Her affection for the blonde grew. He was just too thoughtful for words. Shizunomi sighed. She always knew Naruto was thoughtful, but he kind of went a little bit overboard with the shopping. She could only guess that he had used most of his pay for groceries. It was a sweet and kind gesture nonetheless. Tenten couldn't believe that a guy she barely knew bought so much stuff for them. She was flattered that he thought about them. She couldn't help but be impressed with the blonde's kind gesture. It was then that the object of their thoughts walked into the room, looking worse for wear. They watched him enter with a melancholy look upon his face. Naruto, feeling that everyone's attention was upon his person, instantly brought a grin upon his face. And for a split second anyone who cared enough to look would have been mistaken that the frown was ever present. It was gone before anyone could even question him about it. Kurenai wanted to reach out to him and try to comfort him, but restrained herself. She didn't know what she could possibly say to him. Naruto gave everyone a sheepish smile. Sorry about these ladies. Guess I have to go and get cleaned up. He informed them when he noticed they were looking at his state of dress. He was still covered with the gunk the villagers threw at him at the market square. On top of that, his clothing was torn from his little squabble with his bunchins. He absent-mindedly scratched the back of his head before heading towards the stairs and directly up his room, leaving the rest of the residents in their own thoughts. So do we unpack the bags or what? Anko asked, breaking the silence. Fine. I'll tell you which bags to unpack. The rest would remain packed. It's better that Naruto give it to you in person. Kurenai suggested. They'll have to unload the food and store them away. The rest could wait till later. As they began to unpack the food, Shizun stood beside Kurenai. She then began to ask Kurenai about Naruto, keeping her voice down so as to not alert the other girls. Anko, Hinata, and Tenten on the other hand were busy talking about the amount of food and supplies and what to do with them. What happened? Shizun asked. Worried about Naruto. Kurenai frowned and then sighed. Trust me Shiz, you don't want to know. Naruto on the other hand was still seething. The fight with his bunchins elevated some of his aggression, but it wasn't enough. His thoughts were still fixed on what had happened earlier. He was getting sick and tired of the treatment he received. While he was happy to have returned to his village and meeting his old friends, he still couldn't help but feel depressed that the village's animosity has not lessened since he left. Nothing has changed. He went to take a shower and tried to avert his troublesome thoughts elsewhere. But it was too hard. Memories from his childhood began to resurface. He could feel the sticks, stones, and blade as it pierced his skin. He could still smell the burning scent of his flesh as the village continued to try and kill him. They tried everything. From poison, violence, arson, and torture. He remembered running for his life and running through the streets, while the rest of the people only jeered, stood there, and watched as he begged for them to stop. He ran as far as his little legs could carry him, finally finding sanctuary in the arms of the Sandaime, Sarutobi. He remembered losing consciousness in his arms as the pain in his battered body intensified. Tears began to mix with the cascading water of the shower. He remembered waking up on a hospital bed with the Sandaime watching over him. It was then that he met Jiraiya. The bruises in his body healed. The visible scars in his skin vanished. But the ache in his heart never faded. There were just scars that went too deep and etched itself within his heart. He leaned his head against the cold tile wall while his hands were flat against it. Trying to hold himself up, he didn't notice his hands slowly becoming fists, nor did he notice they were turning white as tears continued to mix with the cascading water. Kyuubi for once kept his thoughts and mouth closed. Kyuubi could see the images as it flashed through Naruto's mind. Kyuubi wanted nothing more than to decimate the entire village and watched everyone that had wronged Naruto hanged by their own entrails. To watch the whole village burn down and hear their screams of agony and pain. To watch them beg for their lives. Could they not see that the human boy was their savior? The only thing that was stopping Kyuubi from destroying them. How could they treat the boy so? Foolish humans. Was all Kyuubi could say. Damn these mortals and their foolish lives. Did they not know how close they came to their own destruction? Naruto finally wrenched himself from his painful thoughts. He needed to work the rage out of his system. With that thought, he quickly got dressed and disposed of his shirt in the nearby waste bin. There was no point in trying to mend the ruined clothes. It will only fuel his rage more and will serve as a reminder of how the village viewed him. He was just putting his combat boots on when Shizun knocked on his door. "Naruto?" she called tentatively. "Come in." He replied back without taking his attention off tying his laces. Shizun slid the door open and found Naruto already dressed. He doesn't seem as energetic as this morning. Nor did he have the same vibrancy as he first arrived. He was more subdued now. More rigid. She sat next to him on his bed. Naruto didn't look at her and simply continued to finish putting his shoes on. "Naruto?" she said. She tentatively reached out to him. As her hand began to touch his back, she felt him stiffen. She could have sworn she saw him wince. She began to rub his back to comfort him. "What happened?" she asked, worried at his reaction. He remained silent. "Talk to me, Naruto," she asked softly, only to be met by his silence once again. Shizun felt her heart break. She knew something was wrong. So without thinking about it, she wrapped her arms around him. She felt him stiffen once more. "I need to train." Naruto spoke, but his voice quivered. His mind still had flashes of images of abuse from his childhood. "Come back to us, Naruto," Shizun heard herself say. She didn't know why, but she felt that the Naruto in her arms was not the same Naruto she knew. "I will be fine," Naruto replied back, as he untangled her arms around him before looking her in the eyes. "I will be fine. Don't worry. I will smile again. You'll see." He reassured her, even though he could feel his eyes begin to sting. He gave her one of his patented grins. The one that says there's nothing to worry about, even though deep inside he felt like his heart was ripping into pieces. She saw his blue orbs begin to water as he looked away. He then got up and left the room without a second glance or another word. At that moment Shizun knew she was crying as she watched the blonde leave the room, his back becoming blurry and obscured because of tears that ran down her cheeks. Konoha Forest Training Grounds. Temari didn't feel like going back to the inn. She wanted to train and enjoy the lush color the Konoha Forest provided. Back in her country, everything was sand. Sand as far as the eye can see. The weather changed drastically from scorching heat to blistering colds. The wind cuts through the skin like razor-sharp knives. Unlike Konoha, the weather was fair and it was peaceful. She ran through the forests enjoying the sights and scents of the trees and flowers. The sounds of wildlife that frolicked throughout the grounds. She thanked her little brother for approving her decision to remain a Konoha and becoming the leaf and sand's ambassador. She loved the wind against her skin as she ran and explored the forest. That is until a loud noise interrupted her leisurely run. She frowned as she began to feel a great amount of chakra build up at the east side of the forest. It was at the training grounds. Whoever was training was sure training really hard to emit that kind of chakra. Perhaps they wouldn't mind sparring with me for a while. With that thought, Temari began to head towards the east side of the forest towards the training grounds. Naruto watched his opponents. 50 bunchins were now reduced to 34. It wasn't bad. He had only used Taijutsu so far and had not used any of his flashier weapons. He wanted to release his aggression and rage. He wanted to use his fists. His bunchins had used Rasengan against him. He had avoided their attacks by using them against the others, dodging and feinting. Others began to use fire as well. He felt his blood pumping through his veins as adrenaline fueled his excitement. He was sweating profusely and he could taste his own blood against his lips. He could feel Kyuubi's excitement and demanded that he use his chakra, but Naruto refused. He wanted to release his aggression, nothing more. He saw his bunchins move and he leapt from his crouching position and began to attack. Temari stopped in her tracks when she saw who the figure was. It was none other than Uzumaki Naruto. She knew she should leave, but she was entranced by the sight of the battle before her. She watched fascinated as she saw dozens of clones charged at the worst for wearing Naruto. She guessed the scruffy-looking one must be the original, since all the other clones were charging at it. She watched as the clones used fire and various chakra energy attacks, while Naruto used Taijutsu and ninjutsu. She watched him move and was awed by how fast he was. She saw how he dodged and avoided the attacks while only suffering minor injuries. One by one the clones began to puff in non-existence as he exchanged blows with his clones. She was so preoccupied in watching him that she didn't see the Rasengan hit the tree she was perched at until it was too late. Temari gave out a startled yelp as she began to fall towards the ground. She was too surprised to act and braced herself for a painful landing. She closed her eyes and readied herself for the impact. But to her surprise she didn't feel the hard ground. Rather she felt warm and secure. She felt like she was flying. She opened her eyes only to see herself in his arms. She felt a soft jolt, informing her that they had landed. But Naruto didn't let her go. Rather, he faced the last of his clones. Baka, watch where you're aiming. Naruto admonished his clone. He was lucky to have caught Temari in mid-fall. I didn't know she was there. The clone replied back testily. Naruto didn't say another word and simply cancelled his clone. The clone disappeared in a puff of smoke. More on Naruto muttered under his breath. He then checked Temari in his arms, inspecting for any incurred injuries. Temari blushed at such close perusal. She could feel his blue eyes examine her body. She was too aware of his strong arms around her, causing chaotic feelings within her. She had not been close to another male since Shikamaru, and even then he didn't dare hold her like this, for the fear of what her brothers, more precisely Gar, could do to him. Temari-chan, are you okay? Naruto asked. His voice is soft and full of worry. He couldn't believe he was so engrossed in the fight that he didn't pay attention to his surroundings. He only became aware of her presence when he heard her yelp. I'm fine, Naruto, she managed to say. Surprised that she sounded so unlike herself. Her voice sounded so unsure. Naruto frowned. Are you sure? You don't sound fine, he questioned as he looked at her more intensely. I would be fine if you would stop looking at me like that, Temari found herself saying. She sounded breathless. His eyes were like sapphires, and she found herself drowning in them. Sorry. Naruto apologized before setting her on the ground carefully. Like she was fine glass. He wanted to make sure she didn't hurt herself. Thank you, Temari replied back as she tried to restore her composure. She didn't know how to act around him. Seeing firsthand what he could do against Gar made her terrified of him. Watching him training sent shivers up and down her spine. He looked like he pushed himself too hard. Judging from his form, he must have been facing more than the clones she had seen before she arrived. The way he dispatched them simply by using pure taijutsu and ninjutsu alone was outstanding and amazing. The fact that he could still stand further amazed her. Just what type of human was Uzumaki Naruto? He dusted himself off and then offered a hand towards her. She simply looked at the hand and then hesitantly put her hand on his. She felt a mild electric jolt run through her body and she visibly shivered. Naruto thought she needed extra help since she seemed like she was in shock and had trouble standing up, so he jerked her up. Unfortunately, he didn't know his own strength, for he tugged her a little too hard. She stood up alright, but not before slamming against his rock-solid chest, losing his balance and making him fall flat on his back while she landed on top of him. Thud. Huh? I guess I didn't know my own strength, he told her while blushing furiously, all the while praying she wouldn't kill him. He gave an awkward laugh just to try and defuse the situation. Temari blushed furiously. She bit her lower lip, trying to fight the reaction of snuggling closer to him. His arms were around her waist. He must have wrapped his arms around her to save her from the fall. And somehow she didn't want him to let go. She just wanted him to hold her like this. It had been so long since she was held like this. He was so warm and comfortable. He also smelled so good. She could smell his shampoo mixing with sweat, making her heady. She could feel her heart race, and she could have sworn she could almost hear both their heartbeats, as though it was trying to synchronize with each other. Temari-chan, not that I'm complaining or anything, but do you mind getting off me now? Naruto asked tentatively. The way she was looking at him was making him all too aware of their situation. He could already tell that blood was now pumping in his lower regions, and pretty soon he was sure she would be able to feel his tent. Like lightning, Temari got off the blonde. They both blushed and remained silent, unsure what to actually say to each other. Naruto Temari began, but caught herself. What could she possibly say to him after this? You fight well, she found herself saying. Do you fight well? You fight good. Good God, I've lost the capacity to think coherently, her mind screamed. Thanks, Naruto replied back, as he gave her one of his foxy grins. Maybe we could spare some time, he replied back, as he once again got up. He offered his hand once again. This time she only gave him a lopsided grin and shook her head. Yeah, maybe we can, she replied back. Glad that she finally got her composure back. She began to dust herself off and stood up on her own. She then turned to face him and had to take a double take. The scrapes that was around his face had started to heal and had stopped bleeding. Dasha, what's wrong? Do I have something in my face? Naruto asked. His only reply was Temari stepping into his personal space and caressing his cheek, unaware of what she was actually doing. Your cuts, they've stopped bleeding, she answered him, as her eyes narrowed in concentration, bringing her face closer to his to inspect him more closely, her fingers tracing his cuts. Naruto winced, which made Temari withdraw her hand. He could see she was puzzled by this, and decided to tell her the excuse Jiraiya had taught him long ago when asked about his healing factor. All the while blushing at such an intimate contact. He was not used to having any sort of contact with another person. It was because they mostly wanted to maim him. The only contact he was used to was Shizun and Tsunade, and even then it doesn't happen a lot. It's a family bloodline, Naruto answered her. You mean a bloodline limit? Temari clarified. She knew only a few of the bloodlines. Residing in Konoha enabled her to learn more about them. She fought the urge to try and trace his cuts with her fingertips to make sure what he said was true. Another reason she was trying to stop was the rising desire to touch his warm skin. Yeah. My bloodline limit is healing. I can heal myself at a rapid speed, he answered. He didn't want to elaborate more since he really didn't like to lie. Though technically it wasn't a lie since it was technically true, though it was more because of Kyuubi. I see. Temari replied back. Naruto's answer just gave her the answer she was looking for. It explained a lot. No wonder he could stand up against her brother Gar. Only a person with a healing factor could withstand her brother's attack because of the amount of damage he could cause. It must be a pretty strong bloodline to be able to survive Gar's attack and ultimate form. With his bloodline limit he could easily become a super soldier. So what are you doing out here anyways? Are you training as well? He asked nonchalantly. Temari valued her privacy a lot and bristled against his prying question. It's none of your business. She snapped back at him before realizing who she was talking to. The guy that defeated her brother. She saw him flinch and stiffen at a response. She could have sworn she saw something in his eyes before it quickly vanished and was replaced by a neutral stare. There was no longer warmth in his eyes. I mean, don't worry about it, Temari-chan. Sorry I asked. He replied back before turning his back to her. I have to go back to the inn and get washed up. I just remembered I meant to meet with the guys at the restaurant. I'll just see you later. He replied back bidding his farewell. Jana. Naruto, wait. Temari called. She didn't mean to sound bitchy. She wanted to explain herself, but it was too late. Naruto had left. Temari stood there in the middle of the training ground. She was alone. The wind blew past her hair carrying the scents of the flowers and leaves. She could hear the wildlife as they frolicked through the forest, but somehow it wasn't the same anymore. She just felt empty, cold, and alone. Naruto dashed through the forest back to the village. He jumped from one tree branch to another. His mind was racing. Questions plagued his head. He and Temari were getting along so well, so why did she suddenly want to bite his head off? He shook his head. Sakura was the same. He remembered the many times he conversed with his teammate years ago. She was nice one minute and violent the next. It was the same deal with Tsunade. Were all women like this? For the life of him, he would never understand women. You and I both, kid. You and I both. Kyuubi agreed. But Temari's response to his simple question only managed to remind him of how much people loathed him. Was he really that despicable and annoying? You have your days, kid. Kyuubi answered him. I wasn't talking to you. Naruto replied back. Who else are you talking to? Yourself. I don't think I can handle hearing more voices here. Kyuubi mocked him. Or could it be that insistent hawk hovering above you? Naruto looked up. True enough, there was a summoning bird hovering above him. Naruto frowned. It seemed he was being summoned towards the Hokage tower. Naruto dashed through the forest back to the village. He jumped from one tree branch to another. His mind was racing. Questions plagued his head. He and Temari were getting on so well, so why did she suddenly want to bite his head off? He shook his head. Sakura was the same. He remembered the many times he conversed with his teammate years ago. She was nice one minute and violent the next. It was the same deal with Tsunade. Were all women like this? For the life of him, he would never understand women. You and I both, kid. You and I both. Kyuubi agreed. But Temari's response to his simple question only manages to remind him of how much people loathed him. Was he really that despicable and annoying? You have your days, kid. Kyuubi answered him. I wasn't talking to you. Naruto replied back. Who else are you talking to? Yourself. I don't think I can handle hearing more voices here. Kyuubi mocked him. Or could it be that insistent hawk hovering above you? Naruto looked up. True enough, there was a summoning bird hovering above him. Naruto frowned. It seemed he was being summoned towards the Hokage tower. Kurenai frowned at the scene before her. She schooled her features well, so as to not give away any emotion she felt. She had been summoned towards the Hokage tower. At first she had no clue as to why she was being summoned. She assumed it was for a mission, but looking at the people before her, gave her a pretty good idea as to why she was here. Tsunade was sitting at her table. Before her left stood Kurenai, in the middle were 5 Anbu ninjas, and to her right stood 3 civilian villagers. Tsunade watched them with keen eyes. This did not look well. She had her elbows on her desk, and her fingers were steepled together in a brooding manner. She watched the people before her, trying to gouge out their intentions. It seems Naruto's return has been an unwelcome one. The silence in the room was interrupted when the blonde shinobi in concern entered the room. Automatically the 3 villagers voiced their outrage. Bakemono. Oni. The other villager on the other hand just spat in his direction, making Tsunade raise one of her delicately shaped eyebrows. The Anbu guards immediately blocked the path of the 3 outraged villagers who were trying to maim Naruto. Naruto merely scoffed. He felt Kurenai immediately approached his side, resting a hand on his shoulder trying to reassure him. He immediately stiffened from the contact, but forced his body to relax, which went unnoticed by Tsunade. Tsunade wanted to laugh at the villagers' antics. She had called the Anbu in her office not to try and hold the civilians at bay, but to try and stop Naruto in case he gets out of hand. It seemed she never really needed the Anbu, for Naruto merely glared at the three, and they immediately stopped their tirade. Naruto, being in a bad mood, was not going to put up with any of this crap any longer. He merely glared at the civilians' direction. It wasn't really his fault when a little bit of his killing intent leaked off. It was more Kyuubi's fault. He knew the demon wanted nothing better than to escape his prison and maul the people before him. When the civilians felt the killing intent directed at them, as well as the killer glare Naruto threw, they immediately halted. It was easy to pretend that they can harm them, delusions will do that. The civilians knew they didn't stand a chance against a demon container with the power of the nine-tailed fox, but they could only try. They were spurred on by the fact that there were Anbu guards in the immediate area, added by the fact that they were before the Godame. They knew that Godame would never let anything happen to them. They also knew that the bastard demon child would not do anything to them before one of the great Sanins. But feeling the killer intent leaking off the demon child was enough to stop them. One of them visibly sweated, and felt that their bladder was once again about to relieve itself. As much as all this amused Tsunade, she knew she had to stop this little debacle. "Stop it, Naruto," Tsunade said to the blonde dismissively. Naruto merely looked at the blonde woman, and did as he was told, giving her a neutral stare. "You summoned," he replied back. He watched the other three villagers from the corner of his eye. He then recognized one of them from the market square. "Naruto, you summoned here before me to answer complaints about your person." Tsunade sighed. As she waited for him to respond, she was met by silence. "Godame-sama, that demon before you had just threatened to kill, yes?" One of the braver three responded angrily. "Is this true?" Tsunade questioned Naruto. "No, it is not, Tsunade-sama," Kurenai defended the blonde. "Naruto and I were minding our own business when these low-lives—" "We didn't," protested one. "That demon is a menace and deserves to die," protested the other. "Enough," Tsunade shouted, her voice bouncing off the walls. Shizun then entered the room with Taunton in her arms. She had heard Tsunade's stressed voice and immediately came to her aid. After a brief discussion with Naruto, Shizun decided to return to the Hokage tower when Kurenai was summoned. She was hoping to speak with Tsunade about Naruto, but it seemed it would have to wait. She glanced at Naruto's direction, and she felt her heart ache. He was wearing one of his many masks, and she couldn't blame him. She could feel that Naruto was trying to restrain himself from defending himself from the villagers' wild allegations. She had heard the shouts the villagers aimed at him from outside Tsunade's office. She watched as her sensei rubbed her temples in frustration. "Kurenai, I take it you were with Naruto at the time of the alleged threat?" Tsunade asked. "Hi." Kurenai nodded. "What exactly did Naruto do next?" Tsunade asked. "He did nothing at first. He didn't even try and defend himself as they began to throw rotten vegetables at him." "Liar." Tsunade glared at the villagers' outburst and motioned for Kurenai to continue. "He didn't do anything at all. Until one wayward tomato hit me on my shoulder." Kurenai explained as she rubbed her shoulder, the part where the tomato hit her. "That was when Naruto got angry and threatened them." "I see." She then looked at one of the Anbu guards. "I take it you were there at the time too?" she asked. "Hi Godame-sama," the Anbu wearing a monkey mask replied. "I came to the area as soon as I felt the enormous chakra and killing intent the youth was radiating." "What happened?" Tsunade questioned. "After he had threatened the plaintiffs, he just simply walked away," the Anbu explained. "Now in your honest opinion, do you think that Naruto would have harmed them?" Tsunade continued her questioning, amazed that Naruto would walk away after such an event. She herself wouldn't have walked away without setting an example or two as she was faced with such prejudice. "In my honest opinion, Godame-sama, he would have. But then again, if I was treated with the same kind of animosity, I wouldn't simply have walked away. I would have followed through with the threat," the Anbu answered. Which was true. As shinobi, people should treat them with the respect they have earned. Setting a simple example would prevent future conflicts down the road. The Anbu's answer both shocked and frightened the civilians. Did the Anbu realize what type of monster they were defending? Right then. "Naruto, do you have anything to say to defend yourself?" Tsunade asked, trying to gauge Naruto's emotion. But she didn't succeed. Naruto had learned to school his emotions well while he was away, or has it always been there, and this she had never noticed to begin with. "I stand by my words," Naruto replied back as he glared at the villagers. He doesn't care what they do to him. He could take the abuse, but he will not let their hatred involve another person or being. They are innocent. They shouldn't suffer just because they were in his company. Tsunade then remained quiet. Everyone in the room awaited her decision. Shizun and Kurenai waited nervously for her decision, while Naruto remained neutral. Shizun and Kurenai had never seen Tsunade so pensive and so serious, especially when it involved Naruto. Normally she would just end up giving Naruto a love tap, punches, to teach him a lesson, and that would be all. But it seems the whole ordeal that Naruto was involved in was a more serious crime. Very well then, you three are under arrest, Tsunade said towards the shocked civilians. What? What for? They all blurted out, flabbergasted by the sudden turn of events. For inciting a riot in a public place. Tsunade explained before giving the Anbu guards a nod to take the three villagers towards the holding cells. But he's a demon, protested one. Enough. Guards, take them to the holding cells. Let them stew for the crimes they have committed, Tsunade ordered. She will not tolerate any disobedience from her decision. She will also not tolerate anyone bearing ill will towards her precious people. As for the rest of you, you may leave. Naruto, you shall stay. I still need to speak to you about your behavior. Tsunade ordered the rest of the people in the room who were reluctant to leave, especially Kurenai and Shizun, who wanted to try and talk to Naruto. Naruto merely remained silent, but gave a curt nod. As Kurenai and Shizun walked past him on their way out, Shizun gave Naruto a reassuring pat on his shoulder, which made Naruto slightly jump. The most reaction Tsunade had seen was from the loud mouth upon entering her office. Shizun too became concerned about the way Naruto reacted. That was twice now that Naruto reacted in such a peculiar way. When Naruto was in his hyper mood, he welcomed affection of any form, whether it was from Sakura or Tsunade's love taps, daily punches, hugs or teasing. This was another side of Naruto that she had never seen before, and it bothered the young medic nin. Tsunade observed Naruto through narrowed eyes. Naruto had always been so hard to decipher. He was like a jigsaw puzzle. Each piece was surprising, and contained a certain air of mystery. Just when she thought she had figured out one piece, she finds out that it doesn't even fit the enigma that is Uzumaki Naruto. She finds it frustrating, yet she finds she is drawn to him more because of it. Naruto had not been acting himself the moment he had stepped into her office, which screamed at her that something was definitely wrong with him. While she had always prayed to see Naruto to become more mature and somewhat subdued, she had to admit that looking at him now at the very form of her wish, quiet, more subdued, well-behaved, and most of all respectful, wasn't what she liked. In other words, she didn't like Naruto the way he is now. She almost wanted to grab Naruto by the shoulders and shake him until he returned to his usual hyperactive self, or at least beat some sense into him. The moment the two women left, she had begun to think of how to talk to him since he wasn't responding at all, not even to Shizun. The room became silent. Naruto and Tsunade ended up staring at each other. Both maintained eye contact. Both pairs of eyes revealed nothing from their respective owners. Finally, sick of the growing silence which proved to be deafening to both parties, Naruto decided to speak. Eager to just get everything over and done with. The sooner the day was finished, the sooner he could forget everything and move on. But you haven't moved the kid. You still haven't forgotten. Kyuubi commented from the back of his mind. Naruto couldn't help but agree. He couldn't forget. There will always be something that triggers such unwanted memories from his mind that continue to haunt him. There were nights that he woke up screaming and covered in cold sweat. The nightmares were the worst of all things he had experienced. It relieves everything. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't notice Tsunade had gotten up from her seat and was now standing before him, her eyes fixed on him. Naruto. She tentatively whispered the youth's name. She could see he was preoccupied with his thoughts. She wondered what was going through his mind at that very moment. It couldn't have been anything pleasant, judging from the frown that was now forming on his face. Watching him now, she couldn't stop herself. She had denied herself the day before when he first arrived. She will not deny herself now. Not when she needed him right now. So without preamble, she wrapped her hand around him and engulfed him in a warm embrace. He remained still at first, unmoving, until he finally returned her gesture. For Naruto, it was quite painful for him to reciprocate, to drag himself away from his tormenting thoughts to respond to her kind act. It wasn't until he felt Tsunade's warmth did he realize this was exactly what he needed at the moment. He buried himself against her, savoring her warmth, basking in the comfort she provided. Tsunade held Naruto. There was something between them. Something that was better left unspoken. As she held him close, she came to a realization that she had indeed missed him. She had wanted to comfort him and drive whatever it was hurting him away. To block and wipe all his pains away. It took her a while to realize that her blouse was slowly getting drenched, but she didn't care. All she cared about was the blonde in her arms that made her live again. Naruto was lost in the moment. He didn't realize tears began to free themselves from his tormented eyes. From his tormented soul. It was far too late to stop them. All he thought about was how weak he was. How despicable he was. Tsunade began to rock him back and forth, cooing soothing words in his ear. "It's okay, Naruto, you're going to be okay. I'm here for you," she cooed in all honesty. She didn't realize that she too had begun to shed tears for the blonde in her arms. They stayed like that for quite some time, never realizing how much time had gone by. For Naruto, letting himself go helped him a lot. He slowly began to feel much better, knowing the person who held him cared for him. To him it was enough to stop his tormenting thoughts. He hesitantly let go of her and looked at Tsunade's tear-streaked face. "Thank you, Ba-chan. I needed that. He replied back softly. Tsunade on the other hand was touched by the gentleness of his voice, and could only respond by just giving him a playful slap on the shoulder. You darn brat. She replied back, as she recomposed herself, smiling, as she saw him grin at her. Naruto suddenly jumped when he remembered he was supposed to meet his old friends. Damn it. I'm late. He quickly wiped the tears from his eyes, and tried to recompose himself, while Tsunade watched him with amused eyes. It was great to see he was alright. Sorry about this, Ba-chan. He told her while he rubbed the back of his head. The last thing he wanted was for Tsunade to worry about him. He was glad that Tsunade had chosen his side. Baka. I told you not to call me that. She chided him. I'm your Hokage. Show me some respect, brat. Naruto only gave her his patented foxy grins before he quickly left. Thanks again, Hanch-chan. As he dashed towards the exit and disappeared from her office. Tsunade just stood there as she watched the retreating youth. Hanch-chan. She asked herself. It's been so long since she has been called that. Far too long. She then smiled. She liked that. Korean barbecue place, please someone tell me what the place is called. At the Korean barbecue place, the guys were all gathered at one table. Team 8 and Team Guy were present. Chaoji didn't waste any time ordering everything on the menu. Shikamaru was conversing with Niji, while Kiba was teasing Lee, while nudging Shino to agree with him. It was then that Kiba remembered his encounter with Naruto. Boy guys, you'll never guess who I bumped into this morning on my way to pick up Akamaru. Kiba exclaimed excitedly. He watched, as all of his friends' attention was now on his person. Oh? Tell yes, Kiba-san. Lee replied back. He was curious what youthful news his friend was to deliver. The rest of the guys just waited for Kiba to answer, giving them their rapt attention, all except for Shikamaru, who had already known who Kiba was talking about. Shikamaru just let out a loud sigh of boredom, which caught his best friend's attention. Chaoji knew that if Shikamaru was bored, it meant he had already figured it out. Who is Shikamaru? Asked Chaoji. It's troublesome. Shikamaru answered cryptically. Hearing those words, Niji had begun to try and work out who could possibly bump into Kiba that would concern their group. The two geniuses shared a look that said that they had worked it out, while Chaoji and Lee were left hanging, waiting for Kiba to reveal the mystery person. Kiba looked around the table, glad that he had all their attention, and glad that half of them had not worked out who he was talking about. It was always good to bring good and surprising news to the group. But before he could even open his mouth to continue his story, he was interrupted by a loud greeting. Boy, you guys miss me or what? All at once the guys looked at the newcomer. Naruto, they cried out in unison. I told you it will be troublesome, Shikamaru said to Chaoji. Chaoji was shocked, and so were the others at the table. Kiba merely grinned. Even though Niji had figured out that it was probably Naruto that Kiba had bumped into, he had no idea he would be showing up tonight. Shino remained quiet, as he always does, while Lee's eyes were brimming with fire from joy. Still loud, as ever it seems, Shino replied back, which made the guys laugh. It's great to see you too, bug freak. Naruto replied back, as he gave the bug user a curt nod. Soon Naruto joined them at the table, and began to catch up on old times. More about what had happened to Sasuke. Naruto found out Kakashi had barely any chakra left when Kabuto arrived, and assisted Sasuke's escape. Naruto listened intently to the story. He couldn't help but feel that he should have been there. He could have managed to persuade Sasuke to return, or at least talk some sense into him. He looked at the sullen faces of his comrades. He could tell that Sasuke's treachery affected them. He couldn't understand how Sasuke could abandon the village that practically worshipped the ground that he walked on while he was treated with so much disdain. The mood had considerably darkened, so the guys opted to change the topic by asking Naruto about his travels and training, which Naruto was too happy to oblige. Lee, Chaoji, and Kiba listened in rapt attention, while Shikamaru, Shino, and Niji deduced that 40% of his story had been exaggerated and had been altered to fuel Naruto's ego. Though it was hard to decipher which part, since they all knew that Naruto had continued to grow stronger. The Chunin exams proved that, from being dead last to reaching the preliminaries. They were quite sure that if Naruto showed enough maturity and self-discipline during the exams, he could have reached Chunin at the same time as Shikamaru. That's a load of bull, and you know it. Kiba accused Naruto. There's no way you could pull something like that. Kiba, don't underestimate the power of Naruto's youth. Lee defended, awed by Naruto's story. He had found himself another rival other than his teammate Niji. You just wished you were in my position, dog breath. Naruto replied back, while Chaoji continued to munch on the food while listening to his comrade's conversation. So what's been happening with you guys lately? Naruto asked. Kiba grinned, as he waited for Naruto to drink a mouthful of his drink, before telling him the news that shocked the rest of them when they first found out. Seeing Kiba's mischievous grin, the rest of the guys observed Naruto, waiting to see how he will react, while Shino leaned back from his seat. He didn't find it shocking at all. Shino got engaged, Kiba blurted out, which made Naruto's eyes pop out from surprise. The drink he was consuming ended up in the wrong pipe, so he spilled his drink. He threw up his drink, some of it coming out of his nose. What Naruto sputtered in response, almost choking on his drink. He angrily glared at Kiba, vowing that he will get him later for this. The guys just laughed at Naruto, while the rest of the diners were grossed out by Naruto's reaction. "Since when?" asked Naruto. "Since last fall," Shino answered. He still couldn't figure out why this is such a big surprise to anyone. After all, he was male, formerly single, dark, mysterious, and good-looking, according to some Genin's girls, and his own mother. "To girl?" Naruto continued to ask. Still couldn't believe that someone like Shino, who liked bugs, and was too stern, serious, and way too quiet, could hook up with a girl. Any girl for that matter. "Why does this news surprise you so much, Naruto?" "Of course I am engaged to a female. Who else am I supposed to be engaged to?" "Surely not Kiba," Shino replied back. Everyone was surprised by the annoyance in Shino's voice. Shino was normally bland, and straight-to-the-point kind of guy. To hear him irritated, and actually make fun of his teammate was something new to all of them. Naruto on the other hand felt sheepish by the way he was acting. "Sorry Shino. I was shocked." "So who's the lucky woman?" Naruto asked, curious as to what kind of woman was attracted to Shino. Her name is Kamizura Suzumabachi from Hidden Rock Village. Her clan has decided an alliance with Leaf to revive her clan. The clan also specializes in utilizing bugs, Shino explained. The Kamizura clan had almost become extinct since the last Shinobi War. In order to revive their clan, they need to forge an alliance with Leaf. More specifically with the Aburum clan to revive their diminishing numbers. There's a great risk of betrayal from them since Leaf and Rock villages still hold a grudge against each other, but the Kamizura clan assured the Aburums that if they concede to the agreement, the remaining members of the Kamizura clan will be migrating to Leaf as refugees. Nichi explained. Suzumabachi volunteered herself as a candidate for she is the granddaughter of the first Tsuchikage and seems to be the leader of the last remaining clan. Shikamaru added. Naruto nodded. Jiraiya had explained to him before about inter-village marriages and their purpose. He had never encountered such a situation to understand it very well, but somehow knowing that Shino was one of them made his understanding about marriage treaties much better. He then wished his friend the best. "Well, I hope it works out with you too," Naruto said to Shino. He remembered something about marriage treaties that Jiraiya had once told him about. Something about them being dangerous. But Naruto shrugged it off. All women are dangerous in his honest opinion. "Hey Naruto, what are you doing later on?" Kiba asked Naruto. Nichi and Shikamaru merely groaned. They knew what was coming. Kiba had always asked them to come with them, but after what had happened to Lee the last time they went, they had declined his offer. Naruto thought about what he needed to do. He really didn't feel like going back to the inn. Besides, the night was still young. It was only 10 at night. Nothing of importance. "What's up? Want to come with us to the red light district for some fun?" Kiba asked with a mischievous grin on his face. He loved going to the red light district and getting himself plastered with booze. It's one of the places where he could actually unwind and pick up some women after a long hard day's work of missions. The rest of the guys were fun to hang out with, but most of the time they're as fun as a wet blanket. With Naruto being back, he can just imagine the fun they could have painting the town red. "Yeah, sure, why not? You guys coming?" Naruto asked the rest of the guys. "Sorry guys, but I will have to pass. Need to go to the Hokage tower early tomorrow to fill up some troublesome mission reports." Shikamaru declined. "Have to pass because I'm going to be taught some family techniques by my dad." Chaoji replied back, though he really did want to go with them. But the last time he went out with Kiba, they woke up in the holding cells for rowdy behavior. "I will be training Hanabi-sama tomorrow, and will be unable to attend. Lee, you cannot go with them. You're still prohibited by Hokage-sama after the last time we went out." Nichi replied back. After the last time they went out, Lee accidentally consumed some sake with predictable results. Lee got drunk and trashed the place. It took all 4 of them to take him down, since all of them were already inebriated tipsy at the time, so they never noticed that Lee had managed to sneak in a drink for himself. Lee deflated at his comrade's reproach. It wasn't his fault he goes berserk from drinking alcohol. It was a great skill to have, but it was a lousy social mixer. Lee knows he doesn't need to have a drink to have fun, but he always felt left out when he watches his friends share a drink, while he only had juice to drink too. "I too need to be home early. My fiancée will be waiting for me," Shino replied back. Which only made Kiba chuckle. "You're not even married yet, and she already has you whipped," Kiba quipped, eliciting chuckles from the guys at their table. "I would have you know that I am not whipped." Shino defended only to have Kiba mocked him by making whipping noises. "Making those noises and gestures isn't going to achieve anything, nor would it make me change my mind," Shino replied back. Kiba simply continued making whipping noises, eliciting chuckles from their table and a few others. Shino waited, but finally Kiba's methods had won out. "Very well, I will come along only if you stop that childish display." "Yosh." Kiba grinned as he put his arm over his friend. I knew you wouldn't let me down, man. Kindly remove your arm away from my person, your scent is aggravating my bugs. Shino replied back blandly. Huh? Sorry man. So I guess it will be me, you, and Naruto. Kiba replied back as he hastily removed his arm away from Shino's shoulders. It's meant to be Shino, Naruto, and I, Kiba. Neji corrected. Kiba has the most hideous grammar he had ever encountered. Then changed his mind when he saw Naruto. Make that second. Huh? I thought you weren't coming to Neji. Naruto replied back thoroughly confused. Which only made Kiba laugh. He was used to Neji correcting him all the time, but he never knew that Naruto interpreted his correction differently. How troublesome. Shikamaru commented while smirking at himself. It was good to have Naruto back. He had never really seen the group so happy in years after Sasuke's betrayal. It was always mainly mission reports they used to talk about, not something trivial like this. It was good to see that everyone is having a good time. It's really great that you're back with Naruto. Kiba replied back while the rest of the guys agreed with his sentiment. We'll have a great time painting the town red, but in your case orange. As they continued to laugh in merriment. Another hour has passed before their little reunion came to a close, as they went their separate ways. Shino, Kiba, and Naruto all headed towards Konoha's red light district for some fun, drinks, and entertainment. Soon the night became a blur to Naruto, as Kyuubi for once didn't use his powers to hinder the effects of alcohol in Naruto. The boy needs to have a break, besides it will be fun showing him everything he has done later. Kyuubi laughed as he saw the shenanigans the trio had gotten themselves into. Wait till Naruto finds out what they had done while he was drunk. Kyuubi laughed. The next day, Naruto woke up with a splitting headache as a gentle voice coaxed him to awaken. Naruto. Ha. Naruto replied back. Naruto. The voice was definitely feminine. Naruto's eyes were still unfocused and his head was still fogged with sleep. He began to unsteadily stand up. You're finally awake, the voice replied back. Good. Another feminine voice replied back. By now his eyes were beginning to focus. He can now make out 5 figures within his room. He can see that their faces were scarlet. The person who stood out most was Hinata's face, since she was blushing like there was no tomorrow. What the he wanted to reply, as he noticed the girls still wearing their nighties. Looking hot as hell. He never finished his reply because Ino took charge. Naruto, could you please take off my shirt? Ino demanded, which indicated that Naruto should comply or else. Which Naruto automatically complied to. Feeling rather embarrassed, as he watched Ino help him when he began to struggle with the shirt. Tenten was next. Could you please take off my skirt? As she giggled. Or would you rather I do it for you? Again Naruto took off Tenten's skirt. This time declining her offer of assistance, as they both blushed. Take off my bra Naruto, and could you please do it slowly? It's very delicate, you know. Enko replied back, relishing Naruto's reaction. It was black satin lacy bra. Very expensive. Watched him with keen eyes, as she licked her now dry lips. His hands became sweaty, as he reached the clasp at the back to release the bra. His fingers shook, as he slid the straps of the bra smoothly off the shoulders, making all the girls blush at such an erotic display. Naruto-kun, could you please take off my underwear? Hinata stuttered, as she blushed even brighter, as she looked away. Embarrassed that she should be saying something brazen like that to him, but reassured herself that she needed to, since the other girls were confident enough to ask him to remove their clothing. With the last article of clothing removed, he finally stood there naked in embarrassment in front of the girls. He did his best to cover his privates with his hands. While Shizun shook her head. Do I even want to know what happened last night? Shizun sighed. By the look of things, Naruto got hammered last night. Too plastered in fact that they found him wearing a piece of each of the aforementioned girls' clothing. She winced when her nose caught a whiff of the smell of alcohol leaking off of the blonde youth. Enko merely grinned. Is there something you need to tell us about, Naruto? Something about borrowing our clothes and coming out of the closet. Not that she minded a tiniest bit. She found this rather entertaining and strangely enough intriguing. Kurenai merely shook her head as she joined the rest of the girls in Naruto's room. She had recently woken up and had wondered where the rest of the residents were when she heard their voices coming from Naruto's room, so she thought she'd check it out. She was still a bit drowsy, but upon entering the room and looking at a very naked, inebriated Naruto woke her right up. The smell of alcohol hits her like a ton of bricks. It's not what it looks like. Naruto defended himself only to wince by the sound of his own voice, creating one massive pounding headache. I think we should leave Naruto for now. Shizun replied back, as she herded the girls out of his room. Realizing that Naruto now stood stark naked in his own room, while the girls ogled his body. She asked each of the girls to retrieve their now discarded clothing, before ushering them away. But Enko wanted to stay, and protest. Come on Enko, you can try, and molest Naruto later. Kurenai explained even though she wanted to ask why Naruto was naked, as a jaybird, and reeked of alcohol, and why the hell were there pieces of the girl's clothing laying before his feet. Finally the only 2 people left in the room were Shizun and Naruto. Thanks Lee-chan. That's twice I owe you. Naruto replied back sheepishly. It's okay Naruto, just go take a shower and have some rest. I will take your breakfast to you, as well as some meds to counter that hangover of yours. Shizun smiled as he pushed the blonde towards the bathroom. Then later you can tell me all about your cross-dressing fetishes. Shizun replied back as she gave him one final push to the bathroom and slammed the door shut before Naruto could reply back. Naruto could hear Shizun's melodious giggle all the way from the other side of the room. Great. This is just great. Stupid Kiba. Naruto cursed. He swore he would never drink to excess ever again, and to tell Kyuubi never ever let him get drunk ever again. All the while wincing, as he could hear Kyuubi's resonating roar of laughter in his head, as Kyuubi rolled on the ground laughing. Somewhere in Konoha's holding cells. Kiba woke up with a splitting headache, his mouth tasted like vomit, and he couldn't remember a single thing. Good. You are now awake. Shino's voice filtered into his head. What happened last night? It's got to be some night-eye Shino. Kiba replied back, as he grinned at his comrade. So could you please disentangle yourself from my person? Shino replied back blandly. That woke up Kiba faster than cold water, for indeed he was sharing the bunk bed with Shino. And for the look of things, he had used his comrade as a substitute pillow. He jumped away from him, looking embarrassed as hell. Huh? Sorry about that man. Kiba replied back. It is alright Kiba. These things are bound to happen sometime. Shino replied back. Kiba looked at his comrade weirdly, as he took a couple of steps back. Hey. Up and at them guys. You've been bailed. The shinobi guards informed them, as he opened the jail cell. I really think I should start reserving one of the cell blocks just for you guys. I'm surprised you still haven't learned your lesson yet. The shinobi guard lectured Kiba, as he led them towards the administration office. Shino and Kiba remained silent, simply because their hangover was keeping them from replying back. At the office they were greeted by Onizuka Hana and Shino's fiancé. Rough night pup. Hana replied back, as she grinned at her younger brother's face. Kiba winced in reply. He will have another earful later from their mother once they get home. Suzumabachi merely glared at her fiancé before she turned around and walked out. Shino, like a whipped puppy, soon followed her without a word. I like her. She sure knows how to control her man. Hana commented. While the shinobi guard made a whipping noise in the background, the other guards sniggered in response, as well as a few others. Thanks. That's twice I owe you. Naruto replied back sheepishly. It's okay Naruto, just go take a shower and have some rest. I will take your breakfast to you, as well as some meds to counter that hangover of yours. Shizun smiled, as he pushed the blonde towards the bathroom. Then later you can tell me all about your cross-dressing fetishes. Shizun replied back, as she gave him one final push to the bathroom, and slammed the door shut before Naruto could reply back. Naruto could hear Shizun's melodious giggle all the way from the other side of the room. Great. This is just great. Stupid Kiba. Naruto cursed. He swore he would never drink to excess ever again, and somewhere in Konoha's holding cells. Kiba woke up with a splitting headache, his mouth tasted like vomit, and he couldn't remember a single thing. Good. You are now awake. Shino's voice filtered into his head. What happened last night? It's got to be some night-eye Shino. Kiba replied back, as he grinned at his comrade. So could you please disentangle yourself from my person? Shino replied back blandly. That woke up Kiba faster than cold water, for indeed he was sharing the bunk bed with Shino. And for the look of things, he had used his comrade as a substitute pillow. He jumped away from him, looking embarrassed as hell. Huh? Sorry about that man. Kiba replied back. It is alright Kiba. These things are bound to happen sometime. Shino replied back. Kiba looked at his comrade weirdly, as he took a couple of steps back. Hey. Up and at them guys. You've been bailed. The shinobi guards informed them, as he opened the jail cell. I really think I should start reserving one of the cell blocks just for you guys. I'm surprised you still haven't learned your lesson yet. The shinobi guard lectured Kiba, as he led them towards the administration office. Shino and Kiba remained silent, simply because their hangover was keeping them from replying back. At the office they were greeted by Onizuka Hana and Shino's fiancé. Rough night pup. Hana replied back, as she grinned at her younger brother's face. Kiba winced in reply. He will have another earful later from their mother once they get home. Suzumabachi merely glared at her fiancé before she turned around and walked out. Shino, like a whipped puppy, soon followed her without a word. I like her. She sure knows how to control her man. Hana commented. While the shinobi guard made a whipping noise in the background, the other guards sniggered in response, as well as a few others. Naruto groaned in frustration, as his memories began to seep in. He had just finished showering, and was now fully dressed. A full set of glowering and moping adorned his usual cheerful demeanor. He tried to ignore Kyuubi's resonating laughter, but couldn't. What's worse was the fact that it was making his head hurt. He knew Kyuubi was deliberately not doing anything for his headache, so that he had no choice but to listen to his roar of laughter. "You humans really are an amusing bunch of species." Kyubi commented. As it continued to roar with the help of Kyubi, it kept laughing in his subconscious. He watched painfully, as he bare witnessed last night's events, as it flashed in his mind. Flashback. "So Naruto, how does it feel coming back to Konoha?" Kiba asked, as they walked through the red light district. The district was known for adult fun. Casinos, bathhouses, dance clubs, and massage parlors were the main business. Neon lights flashing, and bright slogans were everywhere, inviting potential customers to come to their establishments. Kiba smirked, and winked to some of the women they walked past. A couple of them even giggled to themselves, as they smiled shyly at the trio. Kiba was still wearing his Chunin jacket, which attracted some of the women, civilians, attention. Though they were eyeing Shino and Naruto the same manner they gave Kiba. "It's not bad. Actually, it feels like I'm in training again, except without the Irosinin." Naruto sighed. During his training, whenever they were in town, his mentor had dragged him toward the red district of each village they stayed at, saying it was all for research and part of training him to become a man. It always meant that Gama-chan would lose weight because of Jiraiya's demands, stealing Gama-chan from him when he didn't give him money for his research. Shino merely lifted an eyebrow at Naruto's reply, but didn't comment on it. His bugs were sensing a lot of pheromones in the air, more directed at them. He reasoned it was because of Naruto's presence. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and orange pants would capture anyone's attention. Besides, it was rare to find a blonde male in Konoha district. He guessed most of the women hadn't realized it was Naruto. If they did, they would probably look their way into staying. Something that always bothered the bug user. What was it about Naruto that incited such animosity from the people of Konoha? Was it caused by Naruto's pranks long ago or something more? "Here we are," Kiba proclaimed, as they stopped by in front of the bar with the name Macho written in bold large letters. Shino on the other hand merely shook his head. They were at the very same bar where they got kicked out for almost destroying the place. "Well, what's left of it anyways?" Kiba. "It is closed due to reconstruction." Naruto pointed it out to him. "Huh? Oh, that's right." As Kiba laughed. "Must have forgotten." "So what now?" Naruto asked. "Hey, I know, let's try that new club," Kiba remarked. "Surely you don't mean," Shino replied back before he was cut off by Kiba. "Oh, come on, Shino. We didn't go last time because you guys said you just wanted to drink. I bet Naruto would like to have some fun after all that long training trip he went on." Kiba explained, but Shino didn't seem too convinced. "Come on, Shino. Do it for Naruto," Kiba pleaded, though it was more for his benefit really. "Very well. But this night better not end up like last time." Shino sighed, as he gave in. "Or the other nights for that matter." "It won't. Besides, Lee isn't with us, and neither are the other guys," Kiba answered. "I know, and that's what I'm afraid of," Shino replied back. The whole incident wasn't really Lee's fault, it was Kiba's. Before an all-out brawl commenced, Lee just added a bit more to the fire, that's all. "Hey, it wasn't my fault. How was I to know he was a woman? She was flat as an ironing board," Kiba remarked. Naruto merely stood there, not actually understanding the situation. He didn't really know what happened the last time the guys went out, but it sounded like it didn't end very well. "Come on, it's almost midnight. We may have missed happy hour, but we're not going to miss the show," Kiba replied back before dragging his companions towards the club. "Kunai Club, Kiba." Naruto twitched, as they were seated inside the club, while Kiba ordered a round of drinks. "Yeah, Naruto." Naruto twitched again. "Why are we at a strip club?" Naruto replied back, as he tried to control his voice from squeaking. He had thought all the pervertedness was over now that Jiraiya had left for a mission. Kiba merely laughed. "Come on, Naruto. Don't act as though you've never seen women before." Shino remained silent, as loud music blared through the entire club. Numerous people were dancing on the dance floor. Their table was near the stage. There were a couple of women on stage wearing skimpy clothing, as they danced provocatively with the music. There were even women in cages in various corners of the club, with women wearing skimpy clothing dancing inside. Besides, this is not a strip club. This is a dance club. Kiba had to raise his voice so Naruto would be able to hear him over the music. "Are you sure?" Naruto asked, looking at the women on stage and the cages. It looked like some of the strip clubs Jiraiya frequented. For the record though, he never really went to the strip club and stayed there. He knew what it looked like, because he had to somehow drag his mentor's drunk carcass back to the hotel they were staying in, whenever Jiraiya got too drunk to drag his ass to bed. Jiraiya normally sends one of the summoning frogs to Naruto to inform him of his state. Though sometimes Naruto thinks Jiraiya was doing it on purpose, since every time he arrived at the club to get his ass back to the hotel, he refused to leave, making him wait and sit there while the women tried to seduce him. "Of course, I'm sure. They're not taking their clothes off, are they?" Kiba replied back, irritated. For someone who claimed to have seen it all from his journey, Naruto was acting too much like a wet blanket. Kiba had thought Naruto would appreciate his company, and would appreciate the atmosphere. He thought being the wild guy he was, he would appreciate the place just like he does. It seems their animalistic similarities don't extend that far. No, they're not. Naruto replied back with a tired sigh. Kiba was right. None of the girls were undressing. They were just dancing too provocatively to his liking. Being around with Jiraiya had taught him a lot. One in which he should always respect women or else. In his mentor's case, it always ended up the Elsiport where he was always chased and beaten to a bloody pulp. It was always left to him to take care of his sorry ass after the whole mess is fixed. They wouldn't need to anyway, Shino commented, as he watched the people on the dance floor dance. Soon their drinks arrived, and a few minutes later the alcohol began to take effect. This music is crap, Shino commented as he put his glass down rather roughly on the table. The music began to drag after a while. Many of the people had stopped dancing and had begun seating at their table and drinking instead. And you can do better, Kiba mocked while Naruto laughed. Kyuubi on the other hand watched Naruto unwind. It was rare for the blonde to relax. The blonde was always training and had no time for anything else other than gobbling huge amounts of ramen. Kyuubi began to feel Naruto's body relax. Kyuubi found it amusing what alcohol could do to a human boy and the human system. It decided that for tonight, it will not interfere with the alcohol running through Naruto's system. It was always curious as to how the blonde would behave once the alcohol has been introduced to the boy's system. It had seen Jiraiya drunk through Naruto's eyes and found it hilarious. It had seen a lot of drunken behavior through Naruto's eyes and had never actually seen Naruto lose it before, so with that thought, Kyuubi merely stayed in the background and watched the scene unfold. Shino merely scoffed and stood up. Naruto had thought that Shino had lost it and was going home, then to his surprise, he saw Shino head towards the DJ booth. He saw Shino talking to the DJ. For a while they seemed like they were arguing. He was going to come there and intervene when he saw the DJ give up and make way for Shino. Shino took his headphones and the music stopped. The people became upset. Shino merely grinned, he cracked his fingers and began to spin the disc. Naruto was flabbergasted as dance music started pumping through the speakers as Shino began to create his own mix of fast-paced dance music to provocative ones, alternating all the time while the crowd went wild and demanded he played more. Soon women began to flank their table. Two women began to drag Kiba and Naruto towards the dance floor. They began to grind themselves against Naruto and Kiba. Kiba was now dancing in sync with the brunette woman. He gave Naruto a wink as he matched the brunette's moves. Naruto decided to let go and began to relax. He danced with the short-haired woman. Because of the many times Jiraiya had dragged him to places with eclectic tastes, he eventually learned the art of dancing. He was pretty good too, because soon not only was he dancing with the short-haired woman, but a redhead as well. Not a few minutes later 2 more women came and danced with women grinded themselves against him while he moved to the rhythm and beat of Shino's music. Naruto began to get nervous because soon the number of women surrounding him grew. So he excused himself, telling the ladies that he was going to get a drink and will come back for them later. He tried to look for Kiba, but he couldn't find him through the sea of dancers. So he decided to go to the bar and have a drink of water. It seemed he had a little too much to drink since the alcohol in his system began to do its work and was now muddling his thoughts. Kyuubi grinned at his subconscious as it watched and felt what was happening to the boy's body. The club was getting rather full, the music was loud and in full swing thanks to Shino. The room temperature seemed to have increased. He was parched and all sweaty from all the dancing he did. He ordered a bottle of water, but the bar person was too busy with a flock of people trying to get their orders in. He waited patiently for his turn and something caught his attention. One of the women in the cages came out only to be replaced by another woman. Her shift had finally finished. It was now her turn to serve at the bar. She frowned when she noticed a swarm of people barking their orders and wasn't really relishing the fact that they would soon be barking those orders at her. But she earned more money this way and the tips were sometimes generous. She was on her way to the bar when a hand shot out and gripped her wrist tightly. "Where do you think you're going?" the hulking mass of a man asked her. He reeked of alcohol. He looked like he was dropped on his face a couple of times when he was a child because he sure wasn't nice to look at. She smiled sweetly. She was used to these kinds of confrontations. "Sorry, but I still have work to do." She smiled as she tried to pry her wrist away from his tight grip. "Come on. One dance." He smiled as he tightened his grip. This guy wasn't asking from the look of things. "I really need to go, so if you could please just let go of my hand." She began to struggle vainly from his grip. She was still trying to reason with the drunkard. She didn't want to create a scene. "Why, you little slut. Do you think you could tease me like that? I've been watching you the whole night and I'll be damned if I'll just let you walk away." He replied back. His smile was now replaced by an angry sneer. She looked around for anyone to assist her. She really didn't want to lose her job over this. But it seemed that the people around her were so engrossed in the music that they didn't care what was happening between her and this drunken oaf. She could feel the pain in her wrist as he tightened his hold on her, making her cry out in pain. She was about to retaliate when a voice interrupted them. "Let her go." The lady doesn't want to dance with you. Naruto heard a gasp and quickly assessed the situation. His eyes narrowed. A big hulking guy was towering over one of the dancers. She looked like she was trying to get away from him, but couldn't because of his firm grip on her wrist. She was looking around, as though wanting to call for help. Let her go. The lady doesn't want to dance with you, he told the big ugly giant. The guy merely scoffed. And who's going to make me? You? Don't make me laugh. Do me a favor and piss off and leave me and her alone. I said leave her alone. Naruto repeated, this time growling. The guy merely smirked. Well, you asked for it. Before roughly letting go of the woman and throwing a punch towards him. Naruto stood there and caught his fist. What the? The guy replied back in shock as he tried to push his fist to connect. He then tried to use his other fist, but only to be surprised even more when the blonde caught it just like the first. Naruto merely smiled before tightening his grip on the guy's fists. He could feel the bone in his hand shake and feel that if he used a little more force he would be able to crush his hand altogether. You were saying? He mocked the guy before pushing the guy's fists abruptly upwards. The guy fell on his knees from pain. Gomen. The guy replied back. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the lady. Naruto growled. I'm sorry. The guy bit back, pleading at the woman he was harassing, fighting the tears that were brimming in his eyes because of the pain that radiated in his body. The woman in question, on the other hand, watched the entire scene with amazed eyes. The guy was 3 times the size of the blonde, and for him to be able to stop that punch was incredible. The blonde didn't even flinch when he caught both the guy's fists. He didn't even move and stood there like an immovable statue. The woman wanted nothing more but to let the blonde trash the guy, but they were causing a scene. She didn't want to get fired, so with much apprehension she told the blonde to let the big oaf go. Please let him go. The woman sighed. Naruto gave her an unreadable look, but did as he was told. He let go of the guy, who hastily retreated, making the crowd laugh. You'll pay for this. The big guy replied back. His pride hurt at being beaten by a blonde runt who isn't even half his size. As he ran out of the club, the crowd cheered for Naruto. Are you alright, miss? Naruto asked the woman. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks. She replied back, slightly blushing. Did he hurt you? Naruto asked. What? She replied back. The music resumed its normal volume. She had a hard time hearing his voice. I said, did he hurt you? Naruto repeated, this time leaning close to her ear, invading her personal space. No? She gasped out, blushing some more. While Naruto was about to ask if she was sure when a woman latched into his arm. There you are, honey. I thought we've lost you, said the redhead who he was dancing with earlier. She eyed the woman before her, giving her a once-over before turning her attention back to Naruto. You still owe me a dance, cutie. She replied back before pressing herself against his side, making sure that the other woman saw it. But I haven't gotten my drink yet. Naruto replied back. The woman he rescued felt a little put out by the redhead's display. So he's already taking. She slightly bristled at the discovery. Thanks again. She replied back before leaving her hero abruptly. She had a job to do. Naruto was slightly disappointed that the woman he rescued had just left them without another word, while the redhead clung against him. With a lot of pleading to the other woman, he had managed to pry himself away from her grip, promising to get her a drink as well. With a heavy sigh, Naruto went back to the bar. What can I get you? Said the feminine voice. Can I please get a bottle of water and a strawberry daiquiri, please? He ordered before lifting his gaze to the bartender, only to be caught in surprise to see who was serving him. Coming right up. She huffed as she took his order. She was still slightly annoyed that the guy was taking. She knew the other drink was most probably for his redhead girlfriend. Naruto was confused. The woman he had just rescued was acting bitchy to him, and he had no idea why. Perhaps she realized who he was. Once she bought over the drinks, he would ask her. Here you go. She informed him. Naruto reached for his pocket to pay, only to be stopped by her. No need. It's in the house. Thanks for reading earlier. She replied back. Naruto smiled at her, but paid for the drinks anyway. She didn't dislike him after all. I said, she replied back, but was interrupted by him. I know what you said, but I didn't do that to get any reward. Besides, I think you'd get in trouble for giving drinks away. Naruto replied back with one of his foxy grins. The name's Uzumaki Naruto, and you are. Before she could reply, however, Kiba was by his side, as well as Shino. Dude, we have to blow this joint now. What the hell? Kiba. What's wrong? Naruto replied back to his panicked comrade. No time to explain. They're coming. Shino replied back calmly while looking over his shoulder. Both guys grabbed Naruto's shoulder as they hightailed out of the bar. Where are they? Cried a very pissed off Jounin, followed by a few of his cronies, stopping by the bar. I believe they just left, answered one of the people in the crowd. After them, the Jounin cried, as he and his fellow Jounins chased after the trio. All the while a brunette woman was struggling to follow them. Wait, damn it, we're over. The brunette who was dancing with Kiba earlier called out. The woman behind the bar watched the scene and couldn't help but giggle. Until a familiar red hat appeared in front of her. "Where is he?" she asked, irritated. She wasn't able to give him her number unlike the other women he was dancing earlier. "He just left. I think this is your drink," she replied back as she handed the strawberry to Query. The red hat sighed as she sat on the stool. "Damn. I was this close too. I didn't even get to exchange numbers with him." The red hat sighed. "You mean you're not together?" the woman behind the bar inquired. "I wish." She scoffed but continued. "I thought I got lucky when I found him in the crowd again. You wouldn't believe how many women he was dancing with before." She sighed dejectedly. Meanwhile the barmaid frowned. His name was oddly familiar. His two friends. "Kin, get a move on, will you? We're getting smashed here," called out the other bartender, snapping Kin out of her reverie. "Hi." Meanwhile back to her trio. "The hell, Kiba." Naruto cursed as he found himself dodging. "Just keep running, Naruto, and shut the hell up." Kiba hissed. "Out of all the nins you could piss off, you had to piss off a jounin." Shino surprisingly cursed his comrade. "But not just one jounin. Oh no. Not you, Kiba. You had to pick a jounin with a pack of other jounins with him." Shino sarcastically pointed out as they ran. Well, he was sure they could have easily handled the situation, he wasn't about to risk it. All three of them had a lot to drink tonight, and most of his bugs were too intoxicated to be used to fighting. The trio managed to lose their pursuers by hiding in a dark alleyway. "Wasn't my fault. How did I know she has a boyfriend?" Kiba hissed in a low whisper trying to catch his breath. "Only you could attract such problems," Shino replied back. "It's just a matter of time before we get caught." Naruto meanwhile kept cursing. He was still a little bit drunk and was having trouble sorting out his thoughts. "There they are. Kuzo." Our trio cried out in unison. Before running again, they saw another club. "In there," Kiba cried out. "We'll be able to lose them in the crowd." The trio then headed in the club along with their would-be pursuers, unaware that the club was called the Blue Oyster, with flashing neon lights. A couple of minutes later horrifying screams were heard. Naruto on the other hand stumbled out of the back door. He had lost his comrades in the club alright. It was a good thing he had managed to perform his "Thanks, Fox," he mumbled. "Don't mention it." Kyuubi sniggered in response. "I think it's time to call it a night," Naruto replied back as he began to make his way home. "This is still in effect." "What about your comrades?" Kid Kyuubi inquired. "They'll be fine," Naruto managed to say. Too tired to really do anything. Besides, they had it coming. Kyuubi kept sniggering. "What?" Naruto asked in irritation. "Nothing, kid. Nothing." Kyuubi replied back. Naruto must be rubbing it off. Naruto's knack for pranks was rubbing off on the mischievous fox. Naruto on the other hand was starting to feel guilty for leaving his friends behind when he saw them dash past him. Unaware of this. "Well, at least they're okay," Naruto said to himself as he continued his way towards the kunoichi inn. "By the way, Fox, where did you get the idea for the clothes?" Naruto asked. "Nowhere is it important." Kyuubi replied. Kyuubi had summoned a subspace when Naruto performed his, actually collecting clothes from the inn and then back at Naruto. At the moment Naruto was in hench form. He's in his favorite female form, except the girl looked around his age and was wearing a tight white t-shirt, schoolgirl skirt, knee-high socks, and sporting a pair of white tennis shoes. By the time he reached the inn, he kicked off the shoes and socks until he remembered to just cancel the hench. Canceling the hench had used up his strength and sent him sprawling in his bed, unaware that his clothes were real. Which only made Kyuubi cackle, anticipating his reaction the morning after. Then flashback. "Nice going, you bastard fox. Now everyone would think I'm a cross-dresser." Naruto cursed. "Serves you right," Kyuubi replied back as it kept howling with laughter. "Yeah, very funny. Now how the hell do I explain this?" Naruto replied back. "Just tell the vixens the truth, kid. If the worst comes to worst, just bribe them to keep it quiet." Kyuubi advised, which only made Naruto groan. Just then Shizun knocked outside his door. "Naruto, may I come in? I brought you your breakfast and some pills for your hangover," Shizun called out. "Come and eat, Chan," Naruto replied back. Shizun came to the room and doted on Naruto, watching Naruto eat and take the pills she had brought in. "Well?" Shizun asked once Naruto was finished. "Thanks," Naruto replied back sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. "No? Not about that, silly. What I meant was, are you ready to explain what happened last night?" Shizun giggled. Naruto sighed. He might as well tell her. And so he did. He began to narrate to her what had happened at Kunai Club and what had happened afterwards. "When I did that, I didn't know the hench clothes I was wearing were real. So yeah, I dispelled it last night, but I passed out after that. I guess the clothes stayed on, making me look like a drag queen," Naruto replied back, watching Shizun clutch her sides from mirth. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, I just couldn't help it. It was funny. And you looked adorable when we caught you." Shizun replied back in between giggles, causing Naruto to pout. Shizun only ruffled his blonde hair in response, amazed that Naruto's hair felt like silk against her fingers. Tell you what, Naruto, I'll talk to the girls, and I'll explain to them what happened. Shizun replied back, as she smiled fondly at the blonde. Really? Naruto replied back. Shizun merely nodded in response before being engulfed into a bear hug by Naruto. Thanks, Nichin. Naruto replied back, as he tackled Shizun in a tight embrace. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.